And then she came back, and then she went to Puerto Rico and got third. She had transitioned from the longboard to the shortboard. She was one of the few women that did successfully. And then she brought the Sun sisters, Rel and Martha, and Joseph Lagardère from California to Rainbow Bay. And those girls shacked up at Rainbow Bay, and they were better than us. That's what was crazy. As Groms growing up, they were better than us. And Phyllis, of course, has been an institution of Australian surfing since back in '64. And that said, I want to bring up Fernando Aguirre. He's the ISA president for over 2 decades now. ISA is celebrating its 50th anniversary from when Phyllis and another Aussie, Midget Farrelly, were declared those world champions in the days when you got on your national team and you went to somewhere in the world and competed to be the world champion and have a team result. And today, of course, that is still going on, and it's a big part of the upbringing of the young surfers of today. So without further ado, Fernando Aguirre.
This is a very special place for me. First time I ever traveled out of South America was in 1980, and I spent 2 months in Huntington Beach. That obviously changed my life, and maybe decided that this was a place where I wanted to continue my life, and this is where I am. I can. That's my best English, especially when I'm nervous and up on stage. And it's it's wonderful to be here today, and I want to thank the organizers, PT, and everybody for bringing me here. The world of 1964, the world of surfing 1964, was very, very different like what it was today. I mean, of course we were bums, we were derelicts, we were no goods, and my family in Argentina were very concerned about the 2 only sons being surfers and deciding to stay in the surfing world. But in '64 it was way, way, way more difficult. And if it was difficult for guy surfers, imagine what it was for girl surfers, for lady surfers. It was much more complicated. The world was a very chauvinistic world. Even today we have to work a lot about it. But you consider that compared to what it was 50 years ago, and it was really, really difficult. If you're talking that surfers, we were a minority in the world. Women surfers were a small minority within the minority. So it was a very challenging. I got the honor of spending a couple hours with Phyllis yesterday and getting to understand how it was. She's a beautiful person, full of energy at 77, and we all look forward to being like her when we're 77. It was a boys surfing world, and as a lot of you guys know, girls in the water, that wasn't the place for ladies. It was in the water, and they were throwing boards at them and called bad names and pretty much hard us out of the water. But Phil is just like a few of the ladies here didn't care, persevere. And in 1964, when the first World Championships were held in Australia, 2 Australians won. And as you know, Midget Farrelly was the first male world champion, and Phyllis was the first woman world champion. But the news are, and I just realized this a couple of days ago, is that she wasn't just, and she's not just the first woman world champion. She's the first ever world champion, period. Because the ladies division was served before the guys division. So, there you go for you. Today's women's surfing has progressed incredibly. There's a lot of wonderful women, young women, that surf and rip. And it's certainly a pleasure for all of us in the water to share the water with them. It's I want to give you some news. Some of you might be aware that I work at the ISA trying to get surfing to the Olympics, something that is closer and closer. And a couple of days ago we were discussing format. And the format that I like the most is a format in which each surfing team, which will be comprised of most likely 4 surfers, will be 2 women and 2 men. So that's the way it should be, and that's the way it is. So, for all of you young women out there, even young girls, little girls that are thinking about being an Olympian, you're going to have the same shots that guys will to be in the Olympics, certainly. Yes, and those are news. It's not known yet until today. Also, you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So at the ISA executive, 40% of the members are women. In the International Olympic Committee, which are very progressive, they have 20%. So we're better than the International Olympic in that sense. I would like to bring Phyllis, and I would like all of you to stand up and give a standing ovation to a legendary surfing pioneer and a pioneer of women in mankind. Thank you, Phyllis.
It's my honour to welcome all the way from Kingscliff, Coolangatta, Australia, Phyllis O'Donnell.
I first met PG when he was about 15, and PG used to do repairs on my board, so I've known PG for many long years. And I was sunbaking on my patio when PG called me to say that I'm being inducted into the Surfing Walk of Fame here in California, Huntington Beach. And when Pete said I was being inducted, you know, really I could not believe it. And then I found out all my good friends, and especially one very good friend, a friend of mine who belongs to a Jean Bianca garden. I called her up, and I couldn't really believe that that I'm over here. I first came here about 45 years ago. Worked for a board manufacturer, Dewey Weber, and that's where I met my friend Joseph Lagadere. And I first met Nancy when she was about 14. I think I met Nancy, wasn't it? Yeah, at Macaha. And well, like most board riders, you travel everywhere. And one of my favourite spots is Puerto Rico. Beautiful place. And I had a great time over there. And I would like to thank everyone, especially the people that invited me here and helped to induct me into this Walk of Fame. Okay, I'm an Aussie and I'm in the Australian family, so thank you.
Brings us to our final inductee, surfing champion. In the ISA World Contest, the last of the old school ones in 1972, Michael Ho was 14. Our inductee today, Larry Bertelman, if I remember correctly, was 16. And I was 18, and David Nueva, who we just thought was like really old, he was 22. And Jimmy Blears, I believe, the late Jimmy Blears, who went on to win the contest, was the same age as David. He might have been a year younger. But for us, those 5 people that day, we've been friends ever since. That's what bringing the ISA World teams together does. Larry Bertelman and Michael Ho and I didn't even know each other until that day we walked down the sand for the finals, and we've been friends ever since. And that's what's incredibly special about the Surfing Walk of Fame and bringing us all together. Is just like Phyllis, when she won in '64, LJ Richards was there, and he was in the final of the men's, sitting right there when Mitch had won. And that's the beauty of what we do here, once a year when we bring everybody together. Larry Bertleman, of course, was one of the most progressive, inventive surfers of my generation. At times, I don't think the judges understood, to be honest. At times, I don't think they understood. He inspired a generation of kids in Honolulu to change the way they surfed, along with the great elder Ben Iper, who was making boards like in '72, when these two characters turned up, Michael and Larry, with swallowtails. What was a swallowtail? We'd never seen one of those. I had a round tail. And so Larry went back to Hawaii after that contest, and working with Ben and other shapers, they had stingers and these little boards, and they were zipping all over the waves of Honolulu. And they were changing the direction of performance surfing. And of course, Larry went on to have an incredibly successful career. Both these guys won the famous Duke Kahanamoku Hawaiian Surfing Classic on ABC Wide World of Sports. And I know that that event for those guys, being Hawaiian, is incredibly special. I mean, I've seen photos of them on the day with the wreaths, and you can just tell the emotion in both of their eyes of what that meant to win the Duke contest at Sunset Beach. With that said, I want to bring up my good friend, Larry Bertleman.
Surfing, it's been a neat little thing. Our core little group, like Michael, myself, Buttons, Dane, we just went out to have fun. And that's all we wanted to do, was just have fun. Everything else came from everywhere else. And back in those days, they said, surfers, you guys don't even have a prayer. You guys don't have a hope. So a few years ago, I did write one. It was like this, our fellow surfers who aren't have an inspiration be that name. Like surf spot comes, like surf is done on earth. Give us this day our daily surf, and forgive us our drop-ins, so we forgive those who drop in on us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from deep to rise and bad wipeouts, and now we got a prayer.
And that brings to the end our inductee group.
Thank you all coming for our 21st anniversary, and thanks to all of the board members that worked so hard. You'll notice our shirts this year for Morgan Dan, thank you to his company, and get up and meet the different board members, and thank you, BT, for all the hard work you've done.